Are you struggling to juggle OnlyFans and a full-time job? Then you've come to the right place, because in the next few minutes, I'll tell you exactly what you need to know to be efficient with your time. I'm so lucky in that I now make enough from OnlyFans that I don't need another job, but that wasn't always the case. And at times it felt all too much, so I had to develop systems to keep me working efficiently and not letting my work snowball out of control. Time blocking. The first idea is time blocking. We're going to hit this first as it's important to know how much time you have available to your OnlyFans. This is going to vary massively from person to person, depending on your commitments and responsibilities. I've coached people who can only spend a couple of hours a week and others who have a few hours a day to grow their business. In an ideal world, you'll have a lot of time, but that's not always going to be the case. Start by blocking out your time in your calendar for all your tasks in a day that you have to do. Things like going to work, traveling, eating, showering, hopefully. Be conservative with the time you allocate for these tasks. We know you're not going to shower in 5 minutes and be ready at your desk to work. Once you've mapped out all the tasks you have to do, try and lump them together. So for example, eat and then shower immediately after. That way, if you go over by a couple of minutes on one non-work task, you can try and catch up on the next one. Maybe we skip washing from the knees down to save an extra minute. Joke, of course. But aside from our full-time job and traveling, because, well, you shouldn't be speeding, you should be disciplined enough to stick to the allocated time restraints you've now set yourself. By time blocking out your tasks, you now have a map of how your time is used throughout the day. This also gives you a clear illustration of free time you now have for other things. Hopefully now you have 1 or 2 large blocks of that time that can be put aside each day for your OnlyFans. The more time you can set aside, the better, as the goal is to grow a business, and that isn't something that happens without some hard grafting, which leads us to our next point. Prioritization. You're going to need to prioritize OnlyFans over some things. The same would be said for any other startup you are truly trying to work on. Having a full-time job in itself is a fixed priority, and therefore the time you have surrounding your full-time job is the time you need to put towards your OF. To be able to set priorities, you should have some goals to give you a sense of direction of what you want to achieve and where you want to go with doing OF. For example, with this OnlyFans business channel, I have been focusing on making a course full of content which I'm trying to achieve by the end of May. When it comes to prioritization, it's not good enough to say, I'll prioritize OnlyFans. You need to know what tasks you need to prioritize. I have 2 ways of looking at this. Firstly, what needs to be done? For me, this is posting content almost daily on my page and working through a decent amount of messages a day. This is what people are paying for with my subscription, and it's sort of the minimum. I must get it done every day to keep my subscribers happy. The second thing is, what is the 80-20 of your OnlyFans success? For me, this is Reddit, of course. I must at least market to Reddit, as that is where most of my audience find me. So if I don't have time for TikTok or any other platform, that's okay, as long as I've done my main tasks. This is why I set my order of priority to doing Reddit, then messaging, then photos for my feed. This would fill my first block of time, as it is the highest priority for me and really what needs to be done on a daily basis to keep the wheels turning and the money coming in. Once you've done all your highest priority tasks, you should create a list of all other tasks you'd like done and work through them one by one, slowly ticking them off. From creating content for your PPV to making TikToks to maybe working on a slightly bigger project that is in the background. If you end up going multiple weeks without managing to work through your list of tasks, then maybe there is something you can address as to why. Are you procrastinating too much? If so, my next point is to not get distracted. Focus on a single task so you don't get overwhelmed. For example, these all can be individual tasks that you've set separate time to do. Focus on completing one by one and don't do it all at once. For example, taking pictures could be 30 minutes, editing could be 20, and messages could be 1 to 2 hours. If you find that you're consistently procrastinating, try and find the source of that procrastination. Is it anxiety fuel, or do you dislike the task and maybe you should find a different angle to do it in a way that makes you feel more comfortable? Another small tip is to focus on completing your full-time job tasks within your set working hours so that you're not doing loads of overtime, if that's possible, of course, because you don't want it to bleed into your time outside of work. I used to work in investment banking and it would always mean doing overtime, but something I do was to do my OF tasks in my free time. For example, when it was quiet and I had some downtime, I'd go into a meeting room and start answering OF messages during my work time. That way, I didn't get this domino effect of not completing things, which is especially important when you have a lot on your plate. And the best way not to fall behind is to get ahead. Another great saying by Quinn. I should write a book. And while that's easy to say, let me talk through an example and explain why bulk doing tasks is so important. I charge $20 a minute for a custom video. Let's hypothetically say I get one 10-minute video booked every day for a week. An experienced Quinn wants to do them as they come in, so that she feels like she's staying on top of her work. So every day she does her makeup, which takes her 20 minutes. Then she gets changed, which is another 5 minutes. She sets up lighting, sound, and camera equipment, which is 10 minutes. Records a video, which is 15 because she never gets it right in one take, and then spends 5 minutes setting up her PC and getting the data from the mic and camera into Adobe, and 10 minutes editing. In total, she made $200 for 65 minutes of work. Experienced Quinn, on the other hand, waits until she has a week worth of customs to do them all at once. She gets ready once, which takes 20 minutes, spends 5 minutes for lighting, spends 5 minutes changing in between each set, so a total of 35 minutes, sets up lighting, sound once, and camera equipment, which is 10 minutes again, records 7 videos, which takes 15 minutes each, or 105 in total, and then gets her PC set up, which is 5 minutes, and edits, which takes 70 minutes. Here, she made $1,400 in 250 minutes. Experienced Quinn makes $5.60 per minute, whereas an experienced Quinn makes only $3.08 per minute for the same amount of work just batched up in the second example. That's over 80% higher earnings, all because you improved your efficiency, and you can use that extra time to market more, which will directly result in you making more money. Now, trust me, this translates over to everything. Batch up your tasks as much as you can. Take photos for your feed months in advance. Make TikToks months in advance too. It's all so much easier when you do a huge load of work in one go rather than trying to spin plates, keeping up with what needs doing ASAP. My last tip is to develop strong willpower. And in my mind, the best way to do this is to learn to reframe tasks in your mind. For example, when I was at uni, I used to really struggle to revise as much as I should, or at least that was the case in the first few years. Yeah, I'd managed to play League of Legends for 8 hours straight with no problem. I've never been the person who struggles to put in the work to get good at something, just a person who didn't want to put the work into my work. Now, you could just tell yourself this is your job, so you have to do it, and just bare knuckle your way through the task. Or you could find a way to reframe the bad task as something you like. For example, I hated doing thirst traps on TikTok. I knew I had to post something on there, but I found the easiest method for me was to pivot to a slightly more safer work niche and find parts of the task I actually enjoyed. Things like tracking and reposting the same post several times with different hooks to find what was more engaging, which felt like I was doing some sort of behavioral economics study, and then even working on my videography to get better at storytelling. These are all things I really tunnel vision on, as I enjoyed them. That way, I was able to reframe my mindset to see work as a positive thing. If you made it to the end and have an OF or thinking of starting an OF, please subscribe, as I'm trying to build a little community of people who are interested in growing their adult business and supporting each other. If you'd like some coaching or to get in contact with me, you can do that through my website linked in the description below.